Hello. Today we're going to be talking about love. And we're going to be looking specifically at the question of when your love is secure. How can you know that love is secure? Now, we're not going to be considering my thoughts on this, but we're going to be looking at someone else, considering the wisdom of someone else, someone who is one of my favorite philosophers and theologians, Soren Kierkegaard. And Soren Kierkegaard lived in the 19th century. He was a really interesting guy. He had a lot to write about faith and religion and philosophy. He's known as the father of existentialism, but he also wrote some really profound things about love. And so one of the places that you find this is in a book known as Works of Love by Kierkegaard. It's a really big, thick, heavy book. And for Kierkegaard, it's pretty readable. Kierkegaard's generally hard to read, but this one's a little more readable. So what do we know about Kierkegaard? Well, Kierkegaard lived in the 19th century, and where did he live? Well, you will all recognize this from my map as Germany, but he was not from Germany. He was from, anyone? Denmark. D for Denmark. So that's where he's from. The 19th century Danish philosopher and theologian from Denmark. And we're going to be talking about what his ideas were on this subject and specifically when love is secure. So this is an important question because a lot of people, upon entering into a long-term relationship, very often marriage, ask themselves, will this love be forever? Will I always love this person? Will this person always love me? Now, when Kierkegaard writes about this, sometimes he does talk about romantic love, and he's talking about that often here. But it doesn't have to only apply to romantic relationships. Any sort of love between human beings would qualify for what we're talking about here. So, if you want to know, if maybe you're getting married and you're thinking, will this love be secure? Well, you can't really control other people, right? You can't control or do something to make that person always love you. And trying to do that is probably a recipe for disaster, whether you try to do that by being controlling or by being super nice and awesome. You can't guarantee that, right? You can't control if another person is going to love you. However, you can get some insight into how another person thinks about love, which can be useful. But also, more importantly, you can address the question, will your love for this other person be secure? Will your love for this other person last forever, until death do you part? And perhaps, depending on how you understand it, beyond that. So, will your love be secure? And what Kierkegaard says is, if you want to know if love is secure, it is not based on the squishy feelings that you have for that other person. It's not based on how awesome they are. It is based on one thing, and that one thing is duty. D-U-T-Y. That one thing is duty. That will determine whether love is secure. Because if you base your love for another person on how awesome that person is, or how interesting, or how sweet, or how they make you feel all squishy inside, well, that's not necessarily going to be there all the time. There are going to be times when that person doesn't make you feel squishy and doesn't make you, happy. And so if your love is based on these things, those things are not guaranteed. In fact, those things are probably not going to be there all the time. When I was young in high school, I had a youth counselor named Dave. Of course, we called him Mr. Dave because back then, we had respect for authority. But anyway, and Mr. Dave told me something that I haven't forgotten. He said, look, when you get married, there are going to be some days that you feel like you don't love that other person. And I thought that was really kind of interesting, because if you're planning on always having the basis for the relationship, for the love in the relationship based on how you feel, well, guess what? There are going to be times that you don't feel anything. You might only feel anger or hostility, and certainly you may not feel love, or feel in love with that person. And so that's just the reality of relationships. My wife confirms that this can often be the case. I've been married almost 22 years, and yeah, I haven't run into it yet, but my wife says that it can be a fairly common occurrence that you feel that way. Anyway, duty, on the other hand, if you love a person out of duty, duty is eternal. Duty is universal. It is a command from God. It is the thou shalt, right? Just like with the commandments, thou shalt do this. And so if the basis for loving the other person is an ethical commitment where you have said, I will love that other person, not I will feel a certain way, but I will act a certain way. When love is based on an ethical commitment, as a matter of duty, then it is secure, and only then. Because if you base it on how that other person is so fluffy and awesome, that person's not always going to be fluffy and awesome, and you may not feel that way about them. But duty is universal, duty is forever, and duty is the relationship with the divine ultimately. And so when you make an ethical commitment, that is the only time that you know that love will be secure. Now, this isn't very romantic, right? This isn't how we talk about love. When couples get married and they perform their vows and they say, I promise, right? I promise for better or worse, sickness and health till death do us part, right? When they write their own vows, what they often say is things like, you're the best for me and you're so amazing and I can't imagine being with anyone else. And so therefore I'll love you forever. And Kierkegaard saying that's a problem. That is not the basis for a relationship. I don't know if that's really going to change. I think it would be interesting if some Kierkegaardian got married and said simply, I will love you forever as a matter of duty. And that was the vows. That would not be so sweet and wonderful, but that would be a good foundation for love, to know that, yes, as a matter of an ethical commitment, I will always love you. I will always do what's best for you. I had a friend, I spent a year in a seminary, and I had a friend who went on to become a pastor, and he also said something. His name is Eric. He said something also that stuck with me. He said, when you get married, you are not saying to that person, I will be faithful to you and I will be with you forever because you're the best one for me, right? That's what we usually say. Like, I'll be with you forever because you are my soulmate. You are the best one for me. And it's just awesome, right? But rather what my friend said was, when you get married, what you're saying is, I will be with you forever. I will be faithful to you forever, even when someone better comes along. Again, that would be an interesting one to put in your wedding vows. I don't really encourage that, but to hear that would actually be a really pretty remarkable thing. Even when someone better comes along, because there are people out there better than you, right? And unless everyone on the earth listens to this, and there's one person, I suppose, that might be the exception. Look, there are people out there better than you. There's people out there better than me, right? My wife runs into them on a regular basis. But fortunately, she's taken the sort of duty approach to love. And so even when someone better comes along, to know, yeah, I'm not going to leave you. I've made a commitment, and we're going to see this through. That's when you know that love is secure. Okay, so what does it mean then to talk about love as duty? We've already, got the idea that this isn't about how you feel, right? It isn't about all the warm fluffiness that you feel inside your gizzard, right? This is about what you do. And so what love is doing what is best for the other person. And again, this can apply to marriages, romantic relationships, but certainly all human relationships, doing what is best for the other person, doing that which makes the other person happiest. Now, again, if you know your utilitarianism, you know that when we talk about the greatest happiness, we're not talking about just like, yay, feelings, right? We're talking about human flourishing, human thriving. And so loving another person is a commitment to help that person become all that they can be, right? That to help that person flourish and thrive in their life, to be happy in the most robust sense of that word. It doesn't mean you always do things that make them happy emotionally, right? And so loving a person sometimes means telling them something that they don't want to hear. But loving a person means doing what is in that person's best interest and will help that person the most, right? That's what it means to love another person. And so what Kierkegaard says is, when love is a duty, right? When you live a life of love for another person, excuse me, what that means is that every day you ask yourself, what can I do for this person that will make them happy? What can I do for this person today that will help them flourish as a human being, to reach their potential, to live a life that they want to live? And so that's how you go through life, as a matter of duty, right? Not because you feel like doing it every day, but because it's the right thing to do and you've made a promise. And so this is also why he's very wary about the problems of habit, right? In a relationship, it's very easy to fall into habit. What's the problem with habit? Habits can be good, right? You can have good habits, right? He's not talking about bad habits. Excuse me, even good habits can be a problem, because habits are external, right? Habits are external acts that we do and we become habituated to. And so we perform these over and over without thinking. But what love is internal. Love is, excuse me, a passionate internal commitment, which doesn't say, yeah, I'm doing I'm doing the right things and I'm buying flowers, and but every day I ask anew, what can I do that will make this person's life better? What can I do that will help this individual? And it has to be this internal impulse and drive to act a certain way in the world. And so when relationships become caught in a rut of habit, then they slowly die. They lose their lifeblood, because everything seems fine, everything's moving along fine, and they lose that passionate inward commitment of, what can I do to make this person's life better? So, in the end of this, we could, excuse me, at the end of this, we can ask, how do you want to be loved by another person, by the people around you? How would you want to be loved by your spouse? And I think what we could say is, we would want that person to love us as a matter of duty. We would want that person to be committed to loving us even when someone better comes along. We would want that person to love us as an ethical commitment, and that every day when they get up, they're going to ask themselves, what can I do to make this person's life better? But you're not going to be loved that way. Sorry, right? None of us are going to be loved that way, because none of us ultimately can love that way, right? We are unable to love people that fully, that committedly, on a daily basis, to fully embrace the ideal that Kierkegaard is describing. However, what you can do, you and the lover and the beloved, what both of them can be doing in a mutual relationship, is existing in a relationship where there's passion to try, there's passion to approach that ideal, and that is the model that they're working on. And so there's this universal commitment that they are ascribing to, and this effort to have this inward passion that says, what can I do to make this person's life better, even when I don't feel like it? Because it's not about me, it's about that person. If you find someone who looks at love the same way, and you can look at love at the same way, then that's a good foundation for a lifelong commitment of loving another human being. So with that, we'll end it for the day. And now you know what to do if you want love to be secure. It's all about duty.